In today's video, I'm gonna be talking about movies that touched me right here. Movies that had me emotional, movies that I almost cried to, whether it was a love that was not meant to be or a character's death. And there's no better way to start this off than with John Wick. Nah, I'm joking. Call me a CLB if you want, but La La Land is my favourite romance film. It revolves around two lovebirds, Mia and Sebastian. She's an actress who's trying to go Hollywood, and he's a pianist that wants his own jazz club. After a couple of chance encounters, they let fate take the wheel and eventually fall in love. Sebastian encourages Mia to write her very own one-woman show, since she wasn't having any luck with auditions, and she did likewise by believing in his dream and even gave him ideas of what the club should be called. However, things changed for the both of them when Sebastian accepted a job as a pianist in a touring band. He was on the road constantly, meaning he never had time for his dream or for Mia, and the one time they did get together, they had a fight. Mia questioned him on whether or not he liked his job, let alone the music he was playing. Sebastian didn't understand why she was asking all this, considering she wanted him to get a steady role. But even if Mia wasn't in the picture, he still needed some kind of motion, because how are you gonna open a club with 0p? It's just that when the motion came, he got lost in the sauce and low-key neglected the idea of opening his own club, which Mia also asked about. In the end, Sebastian said some things that he didn't mean and Mia walked out on him. The fight created a rift in their relationship, but the final nail in the coffin was when Sebastian didn't turn up to the opening night of Mia's play, and he was the one who gave her the idea. They managed to reconcile to some degree, but ultimately, the relationship was done. Their passions were just taking them down different paths. Mia got given a major film role in Paris, and Sebastian was trying to get his own thing going in LA. They tell each other, "I'll always love you," and accept that this was the end. 5 years passed since the amicable breakup, and we see Mia doing up Hollywood. She got a new man, a maid, and a kid. Life's Gucci. The two of them head out for date night and end up at a jazz club owned by yours truly. Now, I had already accepted that they weren't gonna be together, and frankly, I was okay with it. But here's the thing, the movie won't let you. The epilogue shows us an alternate ending where Mia still becomes a famous actress and Sebastian doesn't open his own club, although this is a decision that he's okay with. This is the ending you would normally expect, a reality where Mia and Sebastian stayed together and lived happily ever after, but I guess you can't get everything you want. Mia got her happy ending, whereas Sebastian looks like he's done with life. For all we know, he could have been waiting all those years for her to come back, yet she never did. La La Land made me emotional at the end, but with Up, it only took 10 minutes. You know how the story goes. Carl meets Ellie, Ellie meets Carl, and they get married. Childhood sweetheart or whatever they called it. I'm not too sure. I never had one. They buy the house where they first met and turn it into the one Ellie had in her adventure book. Back when they were kids, Ellie shared with Carl her dream of going to Paradise Falls with her house apparently. The two of them were enjoying married life and things were going well. They were even thinking about having a kid. Many kids in fact. So they began preparing for their first child. But it never came. Carl advocated that they should focus their energy elsewhere and started saving up for the OG dream. But you know how life gets. Things happen, legs break, and before you know it, you're old and grey and that dream you had as a kid, you never achieved it. Carl buys 2 tickets to Paradise Falls, aka South America, before it was too late. Although time waits for no man, because just like that, Ellie dies, leaving Carl all alone. But the movie isn't all sad. Carl does take the house to Paradise Falls with a stowaway called Russell, a dog called Doug, and a bird named Kevin. He also met his childhood hero along the way who, funny enough, tried to kill them. So you know what they did? They got him first! Ah! Bozo! The journey to South America wasn't easy, but it was needed. It allowed Carl to transform from a grumpy old man who refused to let go of the past into someone who finally accepted Ellie's death and opened his heart again, especially toward Russell. That's character development right there. I like that. You know what else I like? The Pursuit of Happyness. This film almost made me cry, but the important thing is that I didn't. Gotta keep it gangster. The Pursuit of Happyness is so good that it probably deserves its own video, but we're here now. A lot of things happen in this story, so it's only right that we start at the beginning with Chris Gardner, a struggling salesman who decided that 5 years ago, him and his baby mama should invest their entire life savings in a portable bone density scanner. This was a terrible investment. They just didn't know it yet. We jump back to the present day and Chris is still trying to sell the scanners. The only difference is that he has a kid now, who ironically enough is played by Jaden Smith. He remembers. That song was a banger, not gonna lie, that song was a banger. But back to what I was saying, Chris was out and about as per usual and came across this guy. Nice suit, nice car, and most importantly, he's happy. Something Chris isn't. It turns out the white man is a stockbroker for a living. Chris asks how he became one and he said you only need 2 things, to be good with numbers and people. And that was the moment when Chris decided to change his life. Chris tells Linda about his newly acquired dream, but she mocked it. And not gonna lie, I hear it. They're 2 months behind on rent, and Linda's been working like an absolute slave for the past 4 months. So she wasn't trying to hear anything besides the scanners being sold. But that wasn't gonna stop Chris from going after what he wanted. And neither was getting robbed by hippies and crackheads. Like I said earlier, his life savings were in the scanners. So losing one was equivalent to a month of groceries. Linda was tired of being with a broke boy like Chris and decided to leave him and her son. Now at this point in the movie, Chris managed to impress one of the managers at a brokerage called Dean Witter and scored an interview. If you're wondering why he's dressed like this, it's because he spent the night in a cell for an unpaid parking ticket and he was painting beforehand. Jay Twistle, that's this guy, comes to tell him he secured a spot for the internship. Now you would expect Chris to be happy to hear this, but he wasn't. Why? Because this is the part where the struggle got real. So here's the situation. Chris and Christopher moved into a motel after the bailiffs were on their head for the bread at the old crib. Chris also accepted the offer for the internship, but there's a couple caveats. The biggest one being that it's unpaid, so the only way he can make rent for the motel is by selling the scanners after work. Another one is that only one person out of a pool of 20 will be awarded the job after 6 months. Bearing in mind, the other interns probably don't have kids or another job to worry about, which meant that Chris had to do what everyone did in 9 hours in 6. No matter how you spin this, the odds are not in his favor, but he still tried and tried because he saw the potential in this job. As a matter of fact, he wanted the role so badly that on his first day he got and he still went to work. Brother, I would have handed in my 10 minutes notice. 4 months passed and he managed to sell all the scanners that he had whilst interning. For the first time in forever, there was a light at the end of the tunnel. But then, the taxman came. Chris is broke. They done left him with $22. He managed to find one of the scanners that he lost earlier in the movie, back when he still had a house. But since it was broken, he couldn't sell it. And with only $22 in his bank account, he definitely couldn't pay for the motel. So the next logical step in his life was homelessness. This is one of 2 scenes where I almost cried. With nowhere to go, Chris and his son had no choice but to sleep in a dirty subway toilet. All the while, someone was banging on the door trying to get in. The 2 of them were definitely at their lowest point here, but they kept moving forward. Chris continued working at the internship during the day, and at night they stayed in shelters whenever possible. He managed to fix the broken scanner, and once again the ray of hope was back in their lives. He gets paid for the cell and takes his son to the beach, far away from anything and everything. Just Christopher and him. This is cinema. The final day of the internship is here and Chris gets called into the office to have a meeting with the managers. And this was the second scene that had me teary-eyed, because they informed Chris that he's got the job and they couldn't be happier to have him. The old man asked him if it was as easy as it looked, and he replies,
"No sir, no sir, it wasn't."
But when Chris was answering that question, he wasn't referring to the internship alone, but all the things that happened to him whilst interning. The old geezer doesn't know half of what happened to him. No one does. Even though there were so many moments when you could see the struggle in his face, yet everyone around him seemed oblivious. Or maybe they just didn't care. After all, his suffering isn't their suffering. And it pains me to say that this is the reality of the world we live in. But I suppose the converse is also true, because when Chris was in the crowd celebrating, no one paid him any mind. For the first time, he wasn't the saddest in the room, but rather the happiest. On the surface, The Pursuit of Happyness might seem like a motivational movie, but it is so much more than that. It explores the reality of homelessness, the adversities of life, and most importantly, the father-son dynamic. They always talk about mother's love, but never a father's sacrifice. And that's all I got for today's video. As per usual, thank you all for watching, and that's all she wrote.